Thank you all for joining. So the official title of this session is A New Identity, SSI Comes of Age. And just for anyone unfamiliar, SSI stands for Self-Sovereign Identity. And what that means, in a nutshell, is digital identity that the user has complete ownership and control of, as opposed to centralized ID solutions that are generally in the hands of a company or government. So I'll clear that up. We've had some panels on this topic in the past, which have been more theoretical in nature, because this technology is very nascent, but it is expected to ramp up pretty quickly in the coming years. So two goals for today's panel. One was to highlight some real-world examples of SSI working out there in the wild and showing how it has indeed come of age. And then the other is, we just saw the demos of the autonomous AI agents, so I want to talk about and try to bring some clarity to the role that digital ID will play in that world. So we're going to start with Vikas. We're going to show your video of Neoke in action. So give us a little information about the proof of concept that you did with IATA, and then just say when to play the video, and the team will play it, and please narrate.
Sure. Thanks, Mike, for kicking this off. A few months ago, IATA, along with Neoke, Cathay Pacific, Narita Airport, and Hong Kong Airport, this video is actually courtesy Hong Kong Airport, work together to build a seamless connected journey where a traveler, actually two travelers, traveled from Hong Kong to Tokyo without any physical document check using biometrics. And this was done using verifiable credentials and wallets to orchestrate as agents to provide the seamless journey. The main idea of this experiment was to test if these standards that IATA proposed actually work or not, because global aviation works on certain regulations and standards, and we were able to actually prove that these standards operate pretty well. And in the World Passenger Symposium, IATA basically expressed, okay, this is good to go, and this is ready to scale. So that was very exciting opportunity to showcase how this actually works. I think this has fantastic ability for travel to move forward as an industry. Now think about the ability to, when interoperability is enabled at scale, right, what it could do. It unlocks the value of the whole industry, aviation, hospitality, and beyond. So that was one of the works that we did very recently.
And talk a little bit about what needed to happen behind the scenes, maybe particularly from a regulatory standpoint, to enable everything that happened there.
Yeah, and two regulators over here is IATA and International Civil Aviation Office, who have very strict standards on how these digital identities are onboarded. So think about like when you go travel, through the immigration counter, they take your passport, they check all the visas, and they capture your biometrics and stored in a system. These are all standards that are in play by ICAO and IATA. So what we did was to basically utilize some of those software that exists to capture the identity data, use the chip data from ICAO to see who has actually signed this cryptographically, pull the information, match that information with a liveness check, and basically verify that really you are you, and create a credential that is reusable. And hence when that credential is built on standards, it can go anywhere. So instead of going to a hotel and saying, okay, here's my ID for check-in, it would just be a pop-up. You do a biometric check, and off you go. You certify that. And I think that's significantly better as an experience, taking the waiting time from 30 minutes down to 3 minutes. That's a big productivity boost for the industry.
Yep, really great. Next, we have a video from Condatis. So Gillian, we're going to cue that up and give a little context to that, and then please narrate as we go so people can follow what's happening.
Yeah, thank you. So building on from what Vikas is saying, I think you guys have done a tremendous job in terms of working with the standards, crossing borders, doing the things where there's the highest level of assurance needed around identity. But it doesn't stop there. We don't go through airports and fly just necessarily for fun. The why of our trip starts from the arrivals hall and onwards. So what we've done here is we've looked at, okay, taking that information, taking that credential, and then using it to book hotels, to check into hotels, to do enhanced profile preferences, and actually have automatic filters applied. So this is basically providing real-time personal data that I consent to providing to travel operators, to hotels, whoever it is at the time, to say, make me the offers. Here are my profile, here's my preferences, and I would like you to make me the offers that are most suited to me at this moment in time. We've worked extensively with the Decentralized Identity Foundation. It's a group that I'm heavily involved with still, and I know Microsoft and Shane, we do a lot in this space. So the standards and everything are evolving, and how we are going to be working together continue to evolve, but we're really looking at this from an end-to-end point of view, and how you can verify once and then use that in multiple different destinations and have that seamless experience. You'll see here, this even applies to physical access control. So I think previously this has been seen as a completely separate part of the journey. We've got different systems, we've got a whole load of complexity around that, but what we're now seeing is actually identity really becomes the common thread between all of these different interactions, and by prioritizing your identity, you can actually provide this seamless journey.
I think it'd be good to explain the role of the QR codes that we were seeing in the video.
Yeah, that's fine. So basically it's a way of exchanging data. So it's basically, I'm authenticating that yes, I am who I say I am, I'm providing the information, and it's the data exchange. So it's a way that we're leveraging that. And Condatis is understanding that there are going to be many wallets out there. There are going to be many different players. And we're trying to orchestrate the data exchange using QR codes and working across a number of different platforms.
And the QR code is a good way to connect the ID to the service. What are the other ways?
NFC, so now that we know that those, basically Apple and other providers are opening up that stack, we can now use that. So again, the whole kind of tap and go experience that you would have with payments, we're now going to be seeing that with identity as well, which is huge.
Yeah. How about other use cases that could flow downstream in that in-destination experience? We saw the spa, personalization and deals, and what else?
Yeah.
Lots of stuff, I'm sure, but.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that because these are the really big, complicated journeys that we've solved for, which is great. We started with the most complicated, and then we can scale it back. We worked very closely with Microsoft on how can we onboard employees, where you've got shared services, for example. How can we know that the people that are coming onto our properties are the people that they say they are, and that they can perform the tasks that they do? So it depends. We talk about a closed or an open ecosystem. So something like passengers is an open ecosystem and obviously pretty vast, but a closed ecosystem where it's either your own operator or working kind of within a group. Those are some of the use cases that we see as well that are really successful.
Great. Yeah, so hopefully those videos help give the audience a good sense of, these are real use cases today, so, all this stuff is starting to work, which is exciting. So Shane, Microsoft's Entra solution is being used by both companies, so it'd be great if you could elaborate on the role of, that it's playing behind the scenes, and then please do talk about the importance of taking a decentralized approach.
Yeah, and I think, like Gillian said, I mean, when you think about it, we started on the employee side of authentication of an employee, and now we're just flipping it to the consumer side. And really, we're firm believers that you should be the custodian of your own data. Not all tech companies believe that, but we're firm believers in that. So if I own my own data, essentially you become kind of your own API. It can then permission people into your worlds and exchange information with them, and data security, privacy is all bound in that. So the platform is just our Entra platform, and it's used kind of across from an employee perspective, then also into consumer perspective, where you're creating your own kind of identity hub itself. And then as you, you add into that, and we'll talk a little bit later on to AI, and those two kind of symbiotically come together. That's where the magic happens. And then ultimately, we've waited for a long time in the travel industry for the connected journey, and it just hasn't happened because airlines and airports don't even share information together. So, flip the model, we're in control as a consumer, and then theoretically we can create that connected journey moving forward.
Talk about the importance of decentralization as it relates to interoperability, though, because to me, centralized ID is pretty simple and straightforward for people to understand, so this is a big hurdle in terms of getting to mass adoption when you start having people use decentralized wallet and QR codes, and it's kind of a big change, but necessary, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're all about open ecosystems. We're not big fans of the non-open, decentralized ID. It's important in various industries and what you're doing and working, but I mean, the more open the ecosystem play is, I think the better the customer experience long-term is across the board. Mm-hmm. So we're founding members of Decentralized ID, I don't know, 10 years ago or 8 years ago. So this is a long journey we've been on. This is not something new, but we're seeing some great use cases in the marketplace due to these companies, pushing the envelope a little bit with the industry as a whole.
Mm-hmm. you each talk about, give some examples of the importance of decentralized ID, interoperability, and how that interoperability would be so crucial in the customer journey, the traveler journey?
You want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. Maybe, abstract that with just simply what is the connected trip, right? We've talked about the connected trip for quite many years, but many times there's
I wasn't going to say connected trip, but yeah.
Yeah, well, we start our journey on one platform, book our hotels on another, flights on another, cars on another, and at every step of the way, we're somehow filling forms, providing similar sort of information at every step of the way. Let's take an example of Bonvoy over here. By the way, you do get points on your Starbucks usage if you've had a few coffees, but you don't have that ability to enablement by an agent wallet to go on behalf of you and capture all that different clunkiness and bring that all together. So I think these are really good cases where the whole narrative of connected trip comes to life and this whole interaction becomes a lot more seamless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, we ourselves, our behaviors are interoperable. We mix between digital and physical. We behave one way one day, we behave a different way another. So the technology has to be able to flex to replicate the way that we behave ourselves. And I'm just the firmest believer that the only way that any sort of technology can keep up pace with how I behave is if I am in control of that technology, if I am in control of that data, and it's my data that I share at that point in time. It's real time, it's privacy preserving, it's all the things. I'm giving it to you with consent. Please use it. I'm very happy to then, empty my bank account. I will, very willingly. So I think that these are the things that we see. So we need to collaborate because that, to me, has been what has stopped things progressing in the way that we would have hoped to see. But now the model's changed and there is the tech's there. It's been there for a while, but now I think we can see it actually coming to life. And as I say, we're all involved in large-scale deployments to say the time is now.
Is it okay if I can add another
Sure.
comment? That's actually very true. One of the insights that we learned was that every time we ask a user to input any form of information, the conversion drops by 50%, right? That's massive. And like you said, Jill, that if there is structured, verified information in real time that enables that implementation of okay, the data flows and off you go, that's going to actually impact quite a bit, from a bottom line perspective.
Absolutely.
For businesses.
Yeah.
So there's the use case.
So in the previous session, we saw the demos by the autonomous agent companies, Otto and FlockX, which is using the Fetch.ai infrastructure. And they're working mostly in the shopping and booking phase, right? That's what we saw. The videos and most of what we talked about so far has been the in-transit and in-destination use cases. So I'd like to hear about each of you speaking to the role of SSI in the shopping and booking phases, especially in terms of how it could be used to personalized shopping results. If I'm on an OTA, if I'm on a supplier website, again, I think the more you can give examples, the better, so people can visualize how this would work. That'd be great. Anybody?
Yeah. So for me, I think it's invaluable. AI is a tremendous tool set for anybody to be using, and we're all using it extensively, but I think it can only ever get us so far. And for me, it is about, if you want to do hyper-personalization, it's, not to sound cliche, it's meeting me where I am. So I obviously have many different roles, so I'm either a business traveler, but I'm also a mum. And traveling with my kids is one of the most stressful things that I can possibly do on my day-to-day basis. So what I don't want to do is have a situation where I log into a platform that I do kind of sporadically. I have some profile information, I have some personal data. I'm like, okay, that's good enough. And then offers are made to me when I'm traveling with my kids that I cannot do anything with them. So I think it's about understanding that we have multiple roles. We're parents, we're business travelers, we're going on a girls' weekend or a boys' weekend, we're going golfing. We do all these different things. And unless you have that ability to meet me where I am and really take the information that I'm happy to provide with you, knowing that it's done in a consent and privacy-preserving way, make me those offers. But until those two come together, I think that there will continue to be a gap, regardless of how smart AI is. You need to know me now, right now.
Yeah, and I think, when you check in a hotel today, you could have checked in that hotel 30 times, and they're like, have you been here before? So the trust in the data that if I tap, and my credit card, my my ID goes up into the PMS and then a little bit of a profile on me of why I'm there. I mean, all of a sudden the relationship with the consumer becomes, you create more of an emotional connection because your head's up and you're working together. So I think it's the authentication and then the validity of the data that it's 100% true. I mean, that's a game changer from a customer experience perspective because today I'm like, yeah, I've stayed here 30 times. And they're like, oh, well, welcome. And so they move on. So how do we get heads up, create a more emotional connection? And if they really know who you are, which they do, which hotels and airlines, they may know their loyalty members, but they don't know their non-loyalty members. Now with the SSI, they can know everyone. So they can enhance that customer experience more in a digital way. And then when I check in, then ultimately my AI agent will be talking to the hotel chain's AI agent. And when you bring those together, then I'm going to have a very curated journey on property that I've really never had before. Because right now it's kind of a self-service environment. When you step into a hotel, you're on your own. Digitally, you're on your own.
In that shopping and booking process, I'm trying to help the audience visualize, and myself, I think we're all still really trying to understand this as well as you all do. I would have my digital identity, and I have my preferences loaded in there. I can have my passport, my driver's license, whatever ID. And then I could go to Expedia, I could go to an airline, and I could share that, right, connect to their system and share those preferences, I guess, temporarily, right?
Right.
Or it could be in the future my agent that has all my preferences through my ID going to the intermediary or the supplier, right? So do I have that vision correct, or what am I missing?
So contextual personalization obviously is really, really critical. But how do you kind of contain trust in these interactions? I think this is really important. And one of the premise of agents and the growth of agents is that agents will speak to agents to get the right trip, for you. And how do you trust those agents? How do you trust the data that flows between those agents? And that's the clunkiness in it. And I think, Shane, you've talked about it, like decentralized ID is probably that missing link to enable that connected or the agent's experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is. I think there's a lot of value beyond just the verification side of it. Governance, predicting the best next step for you, making those arrangements and doing these workflows for you. And there's also a lot of value with structured quality data, because that's where a lot of businesses exist just to kind of clarify, clean out the mess, provide some structured data. But if the data, structured data is provided by the user, then it becomes a lot more interesting. I remember back in the days we were doing huge amounts of experimentation just to kind of understand and take the path to conversion. Example, if you looked at a swimming pool, then we know that you're looking for a holiday with swimming pool, so the hotels would be pushed, which has swimming pool. And the contextualization over here is that you expose somebody for a specific thing and bring it down. But if the customer expresses that very openly in the very beginning, it becomes a lot more cleaner. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of value there with structured data.
Yeah. So let's talk about loyalty then, and how loyalty could evolve if the switching costs of transporting all your preferences, your payment information, your credentials between sellers of travel are that much lower. You don't have to re-enter all this information with all these companies every time. What does that mean for loyalty, and even how does that affect distribution dynamics between suppliers and intermediaries going forward?
So I have maybe a slightly controversial view on this. I think that SSI could completely and utterly change how we do loyalty today. And it will, I've been in a few of the presentations where people have talked about kind of, building up an emotional loyalty and building up, an emotional relationship with the brand. I think that's excellent, but how? Unless you know me and know me what I'm doing at that time, I don't see how, I just think that's going to be really difficult to do. I also think that there is a world that because I'm owning the information and I'm owning the data, I can build up my own loyalty ecosystem, which ceases to be about an individual brand. So it might be a case of, I like to stay at the Four Seasons, I drive a Tesla, I'm sounding very bougie. I can build up basically a whole profile of these are the things I like to do, these are the places that I shop. And actually, therefore, across the board, you can then have a loyalty ecosystem that is absolutely personalized to you because it's based on your own data that you're sharing and revoking depending on how you're engaging with those different brands. So when Shane's saying about kind of being heads up and things, that becomes basically ubiquitous across a whole load of different brands. It becomes about how I behave as a human, not just when I'm touching individual kind of service providers.
Yeah, and you're working.
I mean, there could be a data monetization play. You could actually sell your data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Make some money?
Yeah, make some money.
That sounds good.
Well, because you can revoke it, right? So you can revoke it as
revoke
well.
it,
So
yeah.
you can say, well, yeah, I'll put my data out there, do a good job, make me some great offers, I'll buy it. But then if you start to say, actually, no, it's too much, I can take back control. We're done.
You're off my island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've just 3 minutes left. I have a few more questions. Maybe quickly, can you just talk about Microsoft's vision? As we saw the demos of the agents, how would Copilot function in that world?
Yeah, I mean, Copilot Studio, Copilot on your M365 or Copilot Studio, and essentially it's a low code, no code. You can get things up and running. We're seeing some great successes. We're seeing some great successes in B2C websites or mobile apps where you're adding intelligent agents into the fold. And last year was a lot on search and inspiration. And now, adding the intelligent agent into the booking flow, we're seeing conversion rates that I've never seen before in travel, from a look-to-book ratio, call center volume down, and now since I'm having a dialogue with these intelligent agents around the booking, now they have all this data all the way through the funnel, and if I abandoned, now they have a better idea why I abandoned. So the intelligent agents, they're coming out, they're everywhere. Fast and furious, and now it's all about adoption of technology. The technology curve is this way, the adoption curve is kind of like, So how do we push the industry as a whole around all of this tech? Because it all makes, I think it drives a tremendous amount of increased revenue, better loyalty, better customer experience, when you kind of marry the high tech and high touch as they come together.
My next question is about how we get to critical adoption, mass adoption among travelers as well as the industry. So it seems like some combination of regulation, commercial viability for the sellers, and incentive for sellers as well as end users. It all kind of has to align. Again, I mentioned it just seems like a lot of friction to me, getting people to understand it, getting them to feel comfortable with it. So what is the path to mass adoption?
I don't know. I mean, I think with the digital wallets coming out in Europe and the digitization of your verifications all coming out, I think that's a huge push, and that's coming out over the next, 15 months in Europe and the US. I think there's 17 or 20 states. So that's pushing in that direction that will help accelerate SSI.
The world going to be ready for that? It just doesn't seem like it. I mean, it's pretty close and not a ton of movement yet.
Well, we've had a case in point where COVID hit, wallets became a thing, right? We're paying pretty much I don't carry cash anymore at all. So it's not. The main point is I think the short term the adoption would look like more regulatory, cleaning up the systems, operation efficiencies. But long term, it's going to be human trust based. So if we build very good design which enables, it's in the vested interest of the users, experience goes multifold, the adoption will happen organically. Mm-hmm. And that's what we have to strive for, frankly.
Yeah, and I mean, as you're saying, the work that's going on in Europe, that's happening. So we have a kind of hard stop. There is not going to be the opportunity for somebody that's carrying this type of identity in a digital wallet. They come to a hotel, they come to, to an airline, wherever it might be, present this identity, and they say, oh, yeah, no, can we see your passport? No, because I'm carrying a legitimate form of identity. Yeah. So there is a hard stop. But start. I think that's my biggest piece of advice. As a minimum, be able to verify different forms of identity, and we know how to do that, right? We can do that pretty simply. We've got plenty of use cases, and start there. A lot of the stuff that we're talking about agents, about everything, that's awesome. It's brilliant, but start with your foundations, get the basics right first, and then start building, and that can happen today.
Mm-hmm. We're out of time, but I think as the last session, we can go another minute, because I wanted to end on your vision for what travel could look like in the coming years. I mean, we have seen that. It does look like a big improvement. But in terms of your companies, I think what we're talking about here is we need an open protocol akin to email, and we're going to get to the point where it all just works, right? So then how does the role of your companies evolve in that world? Because nobody owns email, and there's no company that runs email.
We're at the foundation layer at this point in time. and there will be really cool use cases, development that will happen on top of that. So we're really at layer 1 right now. So as we go, we probably don't know how this model will flip at some point when we reach critical mass. But basically, it's hard to tell. It is going to happen.
Yeah, and I look forward to the day where the apps go away. Your AI agent takes over. I don't have to log into all my different apps in a journey, and then just I'm communicating, or my AI agent just communicating with the providers through that whole connected journey. That would be a great experience.
And I think because Condatis, we are out and out identity geeks. That's all we do. So I think that the fact that this is a huge identity issue, problem, opportunity, it means that we can take the learnings from lots of different sectors. We can use multiple different parts of the Entra platform. We can work with, lots of different companies and do all of the orchestration. So we're not saying that, Microsoft necessarily can do everything. As you said before, there are multiple different players here. So bringing that all together and actually understanding how the different systems operate and how they work together, I think that that's where Condatis stands really, on the shoulders of giants.
Great. Quick show of hands. Who understands digital identity better now?
Oh, great.
That's awesome.
I'll take it. Yeah.
Progress.
All right. Shane, Gillian, Vikas, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.